Hello everyone, this is Step Ahead Driving School, where we train students to save lives through quality education. I am a driving instructor in this school, and my name is Pascal Wilson Ambo. Now the topic we're going to treat today is going to be the act of driving and who a driver is. Please sit back and watch, you will enjoy this. What is driving itself? Driving has to do with moving a motorized vehicle from one point to the other. And what we do in the act, we carry either goods or passengers. In the midst of carrying goods and passengers, there are other challenges on the road too that you have to do what? Manage. So when you manage those other circumstances on the road, moving the goods and passengers from one point to the other, that is what we term as what? Driving. Now, who is a driver? A driver, that name driver is an acronym. The D standing for discipline. We have R for respectfulness, I, intelligence, V representing vision, E for efficiency, and R for what? Responsibility. Now, in the definition of who a driver is a person who drives a motorized vehicle and must therefore be knowledgeable. The person needs to be skillful, he has to be of sound mind and have a positive attitude in whatever he is doing in the act of the driving, and must be of what? A legal age with a valid driver's license. That is the definition of who a driver is. Now, if we talk about the person being knowledgeable, what are we expecting from you? It means the driver needs to do what? To be informed about the road and its users and the motor vehicle that he is using, among other related topics that we'll be treating as time goes on. Now, the next thing we spoke about has to do with the person being very skillful. Now, skillfulness counts with what? Consistency. The more you use a vehicle, the more skillful you become. Because in the midst of your training, definitely be encountering a lot of challenges where you need to be solving from one point to the other. So as you keep doing it frequently at a point, you become very skillful. Now, as a driver, you always need to be of a sound mind, because somebody who is insane can never be able to drive well. He's definitely going to pose a challenge, or will be a hazard for himself and will be a hazard for other road users. So every driver needs to be of sound mind. Now, as a driver, you always need to be of a sound mind, because somebody who is insane can never be able to manage the rules or even the other road users on the road. The next thing a driver is supposed to do is to have a positive attitude towards driving. Now, if you look on all our roads right now, you realize there's a lot of carnage and rage there because people don't really exhibit positive attitude on the road, and that is why there's a lot of confusion and accidents do occur on our roads, because they don't have the positive attitude towards driving. The next thing a driver needs to possess is supposed to be a little bit of at least discipline. Anybody who is disciplined is able to adhere to the rules of the road. They are able to to be tolerant. They are able to exhibit a bit of responsibility in the course of their driving. So all of this, you should be able to know who a good driver is. Now, the next topic we have to look at is fitness to drive. Nobody as a driver can drive if you are not fit. Now, fitness to drive has to do with the totality of you as a driver. It takes all the five senses of the human body, which has to do with your physical nature comes to play here, your emotion nature has to play here, and psychologically, everything that involves the totality of the human being needs to be put in place before the person can really drive well. Now, if we are going to look at the physical nature of every driver, that will mean that your appearance in the form of your limbs will have to be it will have to be intact. Like there shouldn't be any kind of disability that will, how will I put it? That will negatively affect your driving. So your limbs will have to be in point. Then you'll be able to drive well. Now you should also notice that when we have people with disability, they have this kind of customized vehicles which they can use. I think with that is an exception. But the person who is a driver should always be physically fit with all the limbs. The next one, there shouldn't be any illness that will affect the driver in the course of his driving. Let's take a sickness like epilepsy. Imagine a driver who is suffering from epilepsy. When it triggers right now and it attacks the person on the road, what happens? Definitely is going to cause what? An accident. Now look at somebody who has something like a neck pain. Even if you have a little bit of fever and you are driving with it, it is very, very dangerous. So you basically need to be very fit before you can drive. There shouldn't be the intake of any substance, be it alcohol or drugs, because whatever you take in have a negative effect on your driving as a driver. One thing you should also notice with your physical appearance is that your eyesight will be very good, because the DVLA now has come with a policy that if you are going to apply for any of the licenses, be it a renewal, be it a new license or whatever, they enforce you to do what? To have an eye test. Simply because if you are able to see well, that is where you can take good decisions to manage any unforeseen circumstances that confront you when you drive along. Again, your ears will have to be very intact, because you should be listening to every negative sound that comes along as you drive all the time, so that you can act upon it. One other topic that we have to critically look at is the one we call the defensive driving. Mostly people talk about drivers being experienced, driver being skillful, but all that one does not come to play really well when you are driving, except the person is drives defensively. Because any person who is experienced or whatever, if it's not driving defensively, can never be able to do what? To control or to be able to manage the circumstances that confront him or her on the driving. So defensive driving, in the form of definition, is the act of driving to save life, time, money, and property, in spite of the negative conditions that surround the person and the action of other road users on the road. That means that it's not just the act of moving the vehicle from one point to the other, but it also has to do with managing all the other actions and the negative conditions that confronts the driver as he or she drives on the road. So a good driver should rather be a defensive one. Either that it will be in the negative, which is an offensive driver, or a reckless driver, which is wrong. Now, how does one become a defensive driver? The person needs to develop some attributes in him or her to be able to drive defensively. The first thing that the driver needs to adopt or to become is to have full concentration. That's the first one. The next thing, the person needs to be able to observe. The person needs a bit of observation all the time. Now, if the person is able to observe, the next thing the person can also develop is being very good in anticipation any negative thing that will confront him or her when he or she is driving. Next thing that you should also develop is to be very tolerant, because on the road you need a lot of tolerance to be able to counter all the challenges that you encounter. Out of tolerance comes patience as well. If you are not very patient, or if you are not a patient-minded person, you cannot overcome all the rage that will confront you in any point when you are driving on the road. One other thing that you should have as a defensive driver is that you have to be very confident. We talk about confidence, a bit of bravery and boldness also comes to play here. So the person needs to be very, very confident before you be able to drive. Now, The other attitude that you should also develop has to do with you being very knowledgeable. When we are talking about, you have to know how to handle the road, the rules and regulations, the other road users and all that stuff on the road. You did all of them. And finally, you are responsible for everything that happens on the road. So you have to be a very responsible person to be able to drive defensively. There's one thing that we always say as driver instructors, that anytime you go out to drive, you have to put on the defensive coat, which is your defensive weapon. And it's C, O, A, and T. The first C representing concentration, O representing observation, A representing anticipation, and the T that brings you your tolerance out. So these 4 key attributes is what you have to embody in yourself to be able to drive well as a defensive driver. Finally, we will also talk about time management. Time is of an essence whenever you are driving. If you are not able to plan your time well in all your travels, that is why you'll be in a haste, you'll be in a rush, and you'll be committing a lot of mistakes. So it's always advisable you plan well, you go you go before the time. So you should always manage your time and make sure that you will always be on time. A good driver or a defensive driver is the one who is very consistent, who is very efficient because of the way he or she manages his time. So as a driver, you have to leave your destination at least 30 minutes earlier so that you can get there early without being under any pressure or haste. I think this is what we're going to treat today. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. Now we're looking out for the next edition of what Step Ahead will bring to you. Bye.